Hello, everybody. Thank you once again for joining me on this channel. We are looking at a position here from the 2019 Shah Masters, which took place in the United Arab Emirates. I believe it was a 9-round tournament. Many strong players, $60,000 prize fund, with $15,000 going to the top player. It was won by Grandmaster Ernesto Inarkiev on tie breaks, actually. Um, and so this game is between Armenian Grandmaster Gabriel Sargsyan, who had the white pieces, and a Grandmaster from Indonesia, Susanto Megaranto, who was about 25-60 at the time. This position is interesting to me because of its imbalance. It derived from a Shigorin's defense opening. And here, if you want, pause the video and take some time and analyze the position and see who you think is better, if anyone is better. And, just take time to absorb the imbalances in the position. Okay, so I'll get right into the analysis and tell you what I think about this position. I think the position is pretty equal in a dynamic sense. If I had to give a nod, if I was forced to give the edge to someone, I would give it to black. And here's my reasons why. First of all, let's just look at the imbalances. We can see that I look at it like this. Let's just divide the analysis up. So I'll talk about the white side first. So white, of course, has the two bishops, which is fantastic in most scenarios. What makes it really good in this particular position, having the two bishops, is, as you can see, there's tons of open diagonals, for those bishops to prosper. Also, the open files and semi-open files for the rooks. So the bishops and rooks on both sides have the opportunity to shine. So the open files and the open ranks and open diagonals definitely favor white in this position, and that's white's major asset. Other advantage that white has is he has space in the center due to his pawn on d4, and of course due to the placement of those bishops. So that's pretty much the strong points on the white side. Now for the black side, black, as you can see, has pristine pawn structure, right? It's just perfect, no weaknesses in the position here. Also, black is more active. Black has a lead in development, right? His king is castled already, and all of black's pieces are developed, save the rook on h8. Meanwhile, white's two rooks are still not in the game yet. All right. So this solidity of position, and also having a healthy lead in development, is good for black. So that's why, to me, the game is pretty much even. Each side has their pluses and demerits. For instance, the demerits on the white side will be the pawn structure. As you can see, white's pawns are definitely raggedy, and right, if white is not careful, those pawns can be exploited. Now on the black side, if we're going to talk about weakness, we have to address those knights, because the knights don't have any outposts, and so it's hard. It'd be hard for them to really prosper in the open position like this. Excuse me. So it's hard to see a prosperous future for the knights as the game goes on. Oh, and I forgot to tell you too. So it's black to move here. White has just played the move bishop takes e4. It's black to move here. So going back to the knights, so it's definitely a good strategy for black if he can to try to obtain a bishop pair. He would love to trade off the knights for those bishops. And then I think black would definitely be better because then you would have just the rooks. Black would have good pawn structure against white's bad pawn structure. And I think he will be able to neutralize the space advantage that white has rather quickly. All right. Another feature I want to point out is the position of the white king right in the middle of the board. So black's strength being his activity, okay, he wants to try to use this to his advantage. And so black's first move is very good here. So black just simply plays knight to d5, and he exploits the weaknesses in white's position, right? He attacks the isolated backward pawn rather on c3. He hits the bishop, right? He wants to trade off the bishops if he can. And also he threatens to play rook to the rook h to e8, pinning the bishop on e4 and capturing it. All right. This pretty much forces white to give up the bishop pair. If he tries to preserve his bishop pair, say with like bishop d2, which looks pretty natural, black's lead in development is just too much. As you can see, the bishop is pinned, and f3 is pretty much forced, and then knight f6, and then black still gonna get the bishop pair, but he's gonna get some more material. Okay, and this is what having a lead in development does for you. So black is exploiting that at this moment. So he forces the bishop pair out of white's hand. And what's good for black here is that the bishop that gets traded off is white's best bishop. As you can see, the white pawns are all on dark squares except the one on a2. And so that's not good for the dark square bishop that white has remaining. So rook d5, king d2 getting off the file, and now rook e8. Good move. Rook f8 is possible, and right, causing the bishop to commit. Bishop g3 probably would be the best square. At least the bishop has scope there. Then play could go knight e7. Idea behind knight e7 is to play c5, of course, exploiting the position of the king relative to the rook on d5. And let's say if we give black another move, he would just play c5. So of course rook he1, king d7, and then of course with the same idea of playing c5 here, a4 and knight c8. And the idea here is to play rook a5 and then knight b6, ganging up on the a pawn, right? Again, just playing against the weakness that white has in the position. All right. So back to the game, rook e8 was played, and now bishop e3. So you can see the dark square bishop is kind of like a glorified pawn in this position. So at this point, I feel like black is better in this position. Of course, he has to be careful, but black should not lose this game. If anyone has winning chances here, it should be black at this point, because he's pretty much dealt with white's major threat, which was having the bishop pair, open diagonals, so on and so forth. Now, white has this bad bishop, and he has bad pawn structure, and black is ahead in development. All white has right now is space, which black should deal with. So here black plays Megaranto, that is, plays rook h5. All right, another idea is knight e5, and there's a few things to be said about this move. One of the ideas, of course, is going to c4 with the knight, and then perhaps playing b5 to give that knight an outpost there. So let's say after knight e5, king e2, knight f7. So now you're like, what? Knight f7? Idea behind knight f7 is to come to e4 actually with the knight. So again, I'll give some extra moves to black so you can see the idea. Knight d6 and knight e4. And you can see the knight is in an excellent position. And then let's say king d3, since the c3 pawn is attacked, rook f5. And you could just see a lot of pressure being put on the position by black here. That's just one idea there. The other idea, knight c4 here, it looks good, but it does give white some counterplay. So for instance, after king d3, the knight needs an outpost, so b5, but this gives white the opportunity for some counterplay here. And this is pretty even. So in the game, rook h5 was played, h4, rook e4, attacking the pawn, h pawn twice, rook a g1, g6, and now bishop g5. So you can see the rook is locked in for now, but he could play h6 to get out at some point. So black is not really worried too much here. King d7, king d3, and now rook e8. Bishop comes back, and now rook f8, rook g5, rook f5, rook hg1, knight d8. Okay, force the issue there with, let's say, like knight e6 or something. So rook takes, and now rook g5, and now black makes a committal decision here. Rook takes g5, h takes g5, and now the position is simplified, and now we have c6 here. Again, black is very solid, but white still has this space, and I would say that although white's pawns are somewhat suspect, now in this ending, it's harder for black to exploit that. So now you can see that white has just just has this extra space, right? And black has to be careful. He still can hold, right? But he shouldn't really be looking to try to win at this point, because now white has space on the king side and in the center. So c4 and knight f7, putting pressure on g5, bishop f4, king e6, king e4. Notice how white is getting that opposition set up early. Now here is important move of the game right here. Again, black should be trying to hold here, and Megarento plays a very committal move here. Knight d6 check, and this basically offers an endgame, a king and pawn endgame to white, right? He just gives it to him on a silver platter. Now let me tell you this about these type of situations. If you have pieces on the board, like you see here, and you're deciding to go into a just pure king and pawn endgame, you better be really sure that if you're worse, that you can draw, right? That you can draw, or you can win. All right. You shouldn't go into a pure king and pawn endgame if you're not sure of the outcome. Okay, because it's harder to hold just a pure king and pawn endgame. At least if you have a piece like a knight or a bishop, you can move the piece around. You're not going to be put in Zugzwang is easy, okay? But with just the kings on the board, if you say lose the opposition to something, you'll lose the game. But at least if you have a piece, you could shuffle a piece around or something like that, or even sacrifice the piece for a pawn if need be. So what happened here is Sargsyan just snapped off the knight. Bishop takes d6, king takes d6. And now you can see the problems are highlighted in a position here with these colors. Notice that this pawn on g5 is holding back both black pawns on the G and H files. Okay, so black has no pawn moves on the king side. Okay, if he moves the H pawn, he's going to lose. So that one pawn is holding back two pawns. Notice on the F file, I have this pawn highlighted in yellow. White has some extra moves if he needs them. Therefore, white is just simply going to create a position where black falls into a zugzwang, right? Runs out of pawn moves. He has the opposition, and if he needs to, he could play a move like f3, f4, and black will have to move his king, say back, and then white will be able to penetrate in a position. Real easy win. And so I'm not sure why Megaranto would go into an endgame like this. So let's see what happened. So d5, a6, of course, just trying to buy time. He allows white to take so he can, not create a passer. So b takes c6. Now king d4. Notice Sargsyan just simply takes the opposition. a5. Right, it's a questionable move. a5, because now c5. So the pawns are fixed. King e6. Notice Sargsyan again simply just takes the opposition. a4, a3, and guess what? Now black has no more meaningful moves. Now if he had a knight on the board, he could probably shuffle a knight around. But since the knight he's allowed his knight to be traded off, he must move his king. And at this point he resigned. The reason why Megaranto resigns is because after a3, right, he's forced to move the king either to d7 or f7 or just straight back. King e5. Let's say he does king e7, right? He gets the opposition back, but now you can see that pawn on the f file has an extra move. So he just plays a move like f3, and it doesn't matter where the king goes. The black king goes rather. White will just simply move in the in the opposite direction. So if he goes to f7, or king or d7, then it goes to f6. If it goes the other way to f7, then if he goes to f7, d6. If d7, then f6. Again, just winning the game. So this is why Megaranto resigned at after a3. Now going back here where he played this move a5, it was a terrible move. His best chance is to play here c5 check, and say after king e4, a5, same thing. Black is trying to avoid zugzwang, but he can't. a4, king e6, and we have a similar position. So now the extra pawn move comes in handy. f4, king has to move back, and now you can see f5, g takes f5, king takes f5, but at least here black has a chance. These endings are notoriously problematic at times, especially in time trouble. And what you'll see here is black has an opportunity where he will queen also. White will be up a pawn, but this gives black chances. And if he plays c5, this would have been the ending. And you can analyze this yourself. Maybe put it in the Nalimov table basis or Lomonosov table basis. It might show a win, after like 60 moves or something like that. But again, if it's just humans playing, it's very easy to slip up and get caught in the perpetual. And on the other side, it's easy too to get checked and have the queens forcibly traded off. However, this right here at this point is black's best opportunity, and he had this opportunity if he had played c5 check. He just allowed white to get too much space, right? Space on the king side, space on the queen side, and it was just too much. I just want to go back because obviously this move was wrong, knight d6, to go into this endgame. So better chance here for black is king d7. And of course, it's obvious why Megaranto played the knight to d6. He obviously was worried about the king, the white king that is penetrating the position, right? So d5, c takes, king takes. Again, being in these like Zugzwang take positions, it's good to have a piece. Knight d8, bishop b8, knight c6, for example, bishop d5, a6, and you see you still have some reasonable chance of holding. Yeah, it's difficult. You give it, allow white to have a lot of space in the territory, but that king and pawn endgame was just totally busted. So now that I showed you how we got to that position, I'm going to just go and show you the opening real quick, right? So that you can bring it all together. The game, I said earlier, started out as a Shagorn's. So knight c6, and we had this variation right here, old school variation, knight f3, bishop g4, takes, g takes, queen d5, e3, protecting the d pawn, and then e5. There's different moves you can play here. You can play e6 here. You can even castle right away. e5 is like real old school. Knight c3, bishop b4, maintaining the queen in the center. And you can see this is how the sides ended up with these imbalances. 2 bishops versus 2 knights. You can see white has a huge pawn center. And black's job is to be as active as possible and basically blockade this huge center and attack it. Game went queen d6, f4, e takes, and e4. And that's like a common theme too, is to play this move f4 in order to mobilize the center. Remember, I said black wants to blockade the center, so of course white wants to do the opposite. Castles, bishop g2, knight g7, queen g4, f5 here. Queen takes, he gets his pawn back. Queen takes f4, bishop takes f4, and this is how we got into the ending. F takes happened, bishop takes, and knight d5, and this is how we got to our starting position. All right, so now that you've seen that, I've already said that black is probably a little bit better here in this position. So even though black lost the game, we can't judge by result. We have to look at actually, what mistakes were made, etc., etc. And as you saw in the analysis, black's position was just fine. It's just that for whatever reason, black lost his way in the position and allowed white to basically like swindle him in this position. Black should have at least drawn. He had such a good position here. But somehow he lost his he lost his way here. Like I said, rook h5 in itself wasn't bad. It was just later on. But perhaps the best move here is probably just knight e5 and just putting more pressure on the white position. With this idea of coming to e5. And notice the difference, right? White doesn't have all this space. Black is putting white under a lot of pressure, and just the overall vibe and of the position is different here. So that is it for this particular video. I hope you enjoyed this lesson. If you know who this player is right here, just let me know. And I'll be glad to shout you out in the next video. The last video I had was Maria Manikova, who's a Russian GM, a women's GM. I gotta make sure I get this right. Yes, Russian-born Serbian grandmaster who played for the Yugoslav team. So yes, Maria Mankova, and the player who got that was SAR14COS. So shout out to him for participating and supporting the channel for a long time, and getting that answer. So whoever's the first one to get this player, let me know in the comments, and I'll do the same for you in the next video. Also, I want to say, check the links below. Please support my channel. There'll be some books on the end game, some DVDs down there. Also, there's a donation link down there. Also know that Chess Audiobooks is also on Live Chess and also on chess.com. If you want to play me in the game or something, I'll be glad to play you. All right, so with that said, thank you all for listening. Thank you for your support, and I'll see you guys soon on the next video.